Now, I will ask my colleague Ellie Schlein if she would like to make some concluding remarks for this panel before we just close this session. Please, Ellie.
Thank you, Davor, very much. Well, I think it was a very interesting discussion. I wish to thank all the panelists. They've pointed out, especially in the second part of the discussion, many important things. For example, when you said that we can't tackle corruption without promoting good governance, it sounds very simple, but it's basically very fundamental. And you know, the impact that CSOs, civil society organization, can have and do have is fundamental, as I said before in the beginning, but you gave us many concrete examples of what it means in the field. I think that, as I said before, when there was somebody, a woman, who asked why doesn't the EU give more support to this role of the civil society organization in the fight against corruption, it's obviously what you said, but it's also that maybe we are not conscious of how much it means, and I really think that we have to insist also in the DEVE committee on this aspect, because you know I've been working a lot on the issue in not only my country but also in Albania, because I'm in the delegation with Albania of the European Parliament, and of course it's not just we don't have to leave the civil society organization alone, and as I said before in the beginning of the discussion, if we don't grant legal, safe and reliable channels for whistleblowers, for example, to denounce facts of corruption, then it's gonna mean that we don't incentivize people to actually blow the whistle. And that means that we, of course, are weaker in the fight against corruption. So I think that the role of, like a bridge of the civil society organization would also profit from the fact that we do grant safe and reliable access channels for, of course, whistleblowers. So I think that we have to keep those things together. And the second thing that's particularly, I think is particularly important is what you all said and pointed out. It's not only creating the laws. It's not enough to create the laws, of course. It's also about implementation of the same laws, and it's also a cultural problem. And I know it very well. And the young people have to do something on it. You know, in Italy, for example, we have a huge problem with not only corruption, but organized crime together with corruption. And the role of civil society there is fundamental. We had in Bologna, in my city, 200,000 people in the streets 2 months ago against corruption and against the role of organized crime. And you know what moves me? Seeing people of 16 years old, younger than me, in the streets explaining what is the role of the mafia and the organized crime in the public procurements. And that means corruption as well. And you know, the fact that at 16 years old, I wasn't even capable of explaining what a public procurement was, means that there are steps forwards in the society. And I really agree that young people can make the difference if they help in spreading this culture for the rule of law, for the good governments, and for the values of course, anti-corruption. And let me just finish by saying this. In our society, and it's not only about developing countries here, seriously, also in our society we have to make sure that everybody knows that people are paying the cost of corruption. It doesn't just involve the corrupted who gets who offers the money and who gets the money. People are paying the cost of corruption. In my country, there are some surveys that show that it's about 1,000 euros per year for every Italian citizen. And I'm pretty sure that at the European level we could do some similar research and discover that it's a very high cost, the one of corruption. If we are successful in spreading the idea that everybody, and as I said before, mostly the most vulnerable and the poorest part of society are paying more, even more. So if we spread that idea, then it's gonna come naturally also to, of course, strengthen the forces of civil society organization and act in a way that we make sure that corruption is not convenient anymore in our society. Because today, we have to say, because of the lack of implementation, because of the lack of support in the civil society role to spread the rule of law as well, today it's convenient, and we have to make sure that it's not convenient anymore in the future. So thanks a lot, everybody, for your contribution. I think that we really had a fruitful debate, and let's maybe you can, as a guest and a very good moderator, I would suggest also to thank our moderator with an applause.
Thank you for that.
You can close.
I have this one, I guess this is the grand coalition in the parliament working. Well, no, thank you very much also for bringing this concept of universality. I think is one of the key changes in the new global development framework. The Millennium Development Goals did a lot of good, but they were just for the developing nations. What we would like to see in New York in September is to have a new global development framework with a new set of sustainable development goals, but that will be applicable to all. So that will be universal. And certainly, tackling the issue of corruption is not just an issue for developing nations, but for developed nations as well, as it was suggested before. I think this is one of the key messages that could be, as a conclusion, strengthened in this high-level panel. I would like to thank you, all the panelists, and you to be a great audience. Let me just invite the audience to have a big clap to all our panelists. And I will invite you to continue with all the other activities in the European Development Days. Thank you very much.